We have more. Yeah, it's a small but dedicated audience, and I appreciate that. No hecklers allowed. All right. Well, I appreciate everyone who made the journey over to learn how to use Vim. And it is easier than you think, and you don't have to restart your computer in order to get out of it. My name is Quinn Snyder. I'm a technical advocate with Cisco Learning and Certifications. You can find me on socials at Q Snyder. And we'll go ahead and get started. And hopefully this session actually resonates. So we'll start off with why do we even care with a 40-plus-year-old terminal text editor in this day and age with all the fancy UIs. We'll talk about how we can edit some of our Vim defaults and make it a little bit more usable than just having to start using the editor. We'll talk about how to navigate and search, some modes of operation because VI has several different modes, which usually trick people up. How to copy, cut, and paste. We'll talk about Windows buffers and tabs and being able to use VI more effectively, especially in the days where VS Code and PyCharm and others have integrated terminal windows and integrated editors and file browsers. How can we make that similar behavior exist inside of VI? And we'll wrap up with a quick conclusion. The best part about this is if you choose to hit this QR code, I have the PDF of this presentation as well as the files that will be used. And hopefully, I'm going to be demoing this a little bit differently. I have an on-screen keyboard, so if you choose to follow along, you can see the keystrokes I'm going to be using. Otherwise, if you have not heard of Cisco U, we have a platform in which we generate free tutorial content. So ranging from everything from certifications, CCNA, CCNP, specialist level, and we also cover adjacent and tangential technologies, of which Vim is one of them. So there are a couple of tutorials. If you hit those QR links, it will link you to the Cisco U tutorials. You will need to create a free account, but after that, you can partake in all of the free tutorial and podcast and other content that we have available on the platform. So, all of that being said, why do we Vim at all? So first of all, it's literally everywhere. So there is not no other, but there are very few programs that are installed by default on every single Linux-based OS or BSD-based OS that exists. So if we talk about VI or Vim improved or Vim, it's like I said, it's part of every base Linux install. So that includes if you're running on Windows and you use Windows system subsystem for Linux, because that is an actual OS, VI will be installed in that as well. Contrary to all of the jokes that exist out there, it is simple enough to learn for basic editing. So quick inserts, deletes, removals, it is simple enough where you can have a few keystrokes, edit a quick file remotely via SSH or locally on your system, and you can get through. For those Nano, Pico fans out there, generally, that requires a separate install within your package managers. You have to do a DNF or a yum or an apt-get in order to install those various editing packages. There are remote extensions for things like Visual Studio Code and JetBrains, so PyCharm, PyGo, other things like that. But they generally, when you instantiate that connection over SSH, those programs require that host, that end target host, to reach out to the internet, download some packages, and install them. So for anyone who has done any federal work or have cordon systems, you may have Bastion hosts, you may have Jump hosts. Generally, those secure systems don't allow package installation, even within the local user runtime. So because of that, you may not be able to use that remote SSH. Or you could be difficult like me and not use a POSIX-based shell. So I don't use Bash or ZSH. Generally, because I use a different terminal or a different shell under the hood, there aren't always packages for those things. So if you're running old HPUX, if you're using things that use Corn Shell or TCSH, you may not be able to have those packages installed as well. So VI may be your only option. And last but not least, your fingers can stay on the keyboard and you look really cool doing it. If you have any opportunity to view some of our NSO developers and the people that present it, like NSO Developer Days, a lot of them are old Unix programmers from back in the 90s. The fact that they can make VI move faster than people can click mice is actually pretty cool. And one thing I actually forgot to mention here, for any user of a Linux-based operating system, if you want to change the sudo information, there's one piece of software that you can use to edit the sudo users, and that's vi sudo. If you try to edit that package with, or that file, the sudoers file, with any other editor, it will fail. So vi is your only option to add new sudo users. So let's get started. I'm going to try to make this interactive. By default, when you launch vi, it leaves a little bit to be desired. So there are some useful defaults that I like to enable just because it makes it a little bit easier to read in my terminal. So everything that I use within to set the defaults within VI, you use :set from normal mode. And I'll talk about what that means in a second. So when you open up VI, you can do :set. The first one is background equals dark. So if you're using a dark terminal, and I don't know anybody else sitting here aside from Hank that actually uses a light terminal editor, the VI was meant for by default to use for a light terminal, so I usually set that to dark, so it makes the colors a little bit easier to read. The other thing that I like to set is line numbers. So if I'm used to something like a VS Code where you have the lines on the side, or maybe Sublime Text, Vim by default does not have those. So I use two commands there, set number and set relative number, next to each other. What that means is set number says give me the lines on each side. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as you progress down your file. The problem with that is a lot of the jump and navigation commands that you can use within Vim require, or not require, but can use a number modifier. So if I want to move up 10 lines or down 10 lines, I don't know how many is actually 10 without sitting with my finger and counting them. So relative number says, which gives me the relative number. If I'm on line 10, then it will show the numbers progressing downwards, and and upwards to show you how many differences there are there. And I'll show that in a second. Set cursor column, if you're using VI for anything that requires tab indentation, so if you're editing YAML files, by default, there's some packages that you can install within VS Code, but cursor column will give me a vertical column that tracks where my cursor is across multiple lines. So if I have to do indentation or white space, I can use that cursor column to track, hey, are all of my things in line, so I'm not indenting too far or too little. And then finally, set HL search. And if you search for something, it will highlight each of those search terms within the current buffer. And you can store all of these defaults in your tilde.vimrc so that you can have them occur automatically every time you start Vim. So I'm going to jump over here, and I'm going to show my on-screen keyboard so you can follow along. We're going to go ahead and start by launching Vim. So as I type, I know I type a little bit quicker, but the keys should light up on that keyboard, and you can follow there. So here's my default VI window. Not much going on. So if I want to change those or set the background, I can do a : set BG equals dark, and we should see some color change. Well, actually, we won't see a color change because it gets rid of that. We will set number. Actually, let's do this. Let's Vim running config so we can see something. Okay, by default, we have this running config. Let's do set BG equals dark, which won't show anything because we have no syntax, but set number. We now have line numbers on the side. So we can see I'm on line 12 currently because my cursor is flashing there. If we do set relative number, we can see that we have something a little bit different. We can see that I'm on line 12, but now every line up and down is given a number relative to my position on screen. So if I need to go up 10 lines, I know exactly where up 10 lines is. I'll do set cursor column. And now I have that handy cursor column that follows my cursor everywhere along, so I know exactly where I'm positioned on that window. So that's, again, very handy if we're doing Python, if we're doing YAML, so I can follow that indentation back and forth. And now I'll do set HL search, which won't do anything, but we'll see it when we go ahead and do some searching. And let me minimize that. Sweet. And like I said, if we were to go and edit the vimrc, you can just add each of those commands without the colon in front of them. So you would just type set BG equals dark, set number, relative number, and each of those will, every time I launch VI, will be default in that editor. Okay, basic navigation. Now, there are some VI purists which will say that the only way that you should be able to navigate with your keyboard is with the H, J, K, and L keys. So H will move up. H will move this way, J will move down, K will move up, and L will move that way. I'm not that strict. You can use your arrow keys to move back and forth. A couple of other really nice commands. If we type 0 from normal mode, that will move us to the front of any line. So if I'm on a line, I hit 0, I move to the front. Likewise, if I do Shift 4 or the $sign, that will move me to the end of the line. So I can move back and forth either way there. Those also serve as modifiers, and we'll touch on that in a second. If we do B or W, that moves us back one word or forward one word. And most of the navigation commands within VI, if we do a capital to that letter, it will modify it based on white space. And I'll show the difference there. B will, so the difference between like lowercase w and a capital W. W will move forward based on and stop at any character or white space. So like a period, a comma, a colon, or a space mark. Word will go to will stop at each of those new punctuation pieces. A capital W will move on white space boundaries. So like IP addresses, the W will move forward by each octet. The capital W will move to the end of that IP address until it hits a white space. J and K will move up and down lines, like I said, or you can use HJ, K, and L to do your navigation. And that's important because if I want to move up lines, I can use a number modifier. So like I said, each of those relative numbers that I was showing before, if I do colon 10J, that's going to move me up 10 lines. So yes, no, that'll move me down 10 lines. K will move me up 10 lines. So you can use those as modifiers. And likewise, you can use 0 and $sign to modify how you move back and forth in your words there. High, medium, and low. So capital H, capital M, or capital L will move you to the top, middle, or bottom of your screen that's visible. We can use Control B or Control F for movement of actual screens, and I'll show you what that means. The curly braces will move paragraphs, and then to probably the most important two pieces, colon W will write your file. Everything exists within Vim in a buffer. It's not written every time you make an edit. So colon W will write what's on your screen directly to the file, and colon Q will exit. So you no longer have to throw your computer on the ground and buy a new one every time you want to exit Vim. Write the file. Yes, it is save, but it means write the file. Thank you, Hank. So let's show the keyboard here. Let's start with some basic navigation. So like I said, we can either move our arrow keys. So up will move us up, down will move us down, left or right, and then left. If we choose to use H and J and K and L. So we can navigate to the left, down, up, and to the right with those 4 keys. If we wanted to jump to the end of a line or the beginning of a line, we can type 0, and that works on any line by white space boundary. So if I go to the middle of a line, even one that has a space or window. So very handy if something is at the very end, I need to modify like an IP address or something, we can just get to the end, go back and delete. Now, what I was saying before, and let's use these IP addresses or the subnet masks as an example. So if we want to move forward by a word, we would use W. You see that's moving to the dot or the next character in that octet. That's the lowercase w. The difference is if I go to capital W, we can see that we're moving on white space boundaries. You see how we skipped completely over to the end of the 255 and return to the line? That means that capital modifies that we don't care about any intermediate punctuation or characters. We're moving by white space boundaries. So we can use that to our advantage if we want to jump over an entire IP address or subnet mask, or if we want to care about the individual octets. And likewise, back is going to do the same thing, but in reverse. So we're going to move to the front of that white space, or sorry, the front of that character by those boundaries. And then if we do a capital B, let's move over here. If we do a capital B, you can see that we're skipping over that punctuation mark. So a capital will generally modify our skip behavior inside of VI. Let's see, what else can I show off here? Yeah, let's do the high, medium, and low. So right here, I'm in the middle of the screen. I'm going to type Shift H, will move me to the very top of the screen. This right here is what we would refer to as a screen. It doesn't move to the end of the file. It means to what's displayed on your terminal at that point in time. If I do a Shift M, I'm going to move to the approximate middle. I think right here I've got like 31 lines. So I'm going to move to, roughly give or take the middle there. And then likewise, low should move me to the very end. I don't know why it's skipping over there. But that only moves by screens. So If I want to see what's below that screen, I will use the Control B or Control F. So if I do a Control B, it should move me. Why is it not skipping there? Oh, that's why. There we go. I was moving backwards the screen. Control B is backwards. Control F is forward. So you can see how the screen is moving. So let me move to the top here. If I do a Control F, we can see that we skip down to the end of that terminal, what was displayed on screen, and move to the next screen there. And then if I use the curly braces, so the shift and then, yeah, we were moving by individual paragraphs. I don't know why. What's going on here? I wonder if I've remapped something differently. All right, moving on. Modes of operation. So the biggest thing that people get hung up on with VI is modes of operation. So by default, what I was moving in was called normal mode in VI. That supports all of my navigation and how I move on the screen. So I can do text manipulation, basically, if I want to change or delete a word, or I can move on the screen. And you can see that nothing is indicated there in normal mode. I'm moving around and nothing is indicated. If I want to add text to something, I need to enter what's called insert mode. And I do that by using the I, A, or C keys. That's insert, append, or change. And I'll show what the difference is for each of those. That will show insert at the bottom of the screen, and I'm now able to add whatever text freeform that I want. So just like a normal, what you see is what you get editor. Generally, people will operate in normal or insert mode. There is a third mode called visual mode, and that's what we use for text manipulation if you want to select the text. So think of it as dragging my cursor along a line of text or along a block of text and select it so I can delete it, cut it, paste it, etc. I'll show each of those modes here. So again, I'm in normal mode. If I want to insert, you can see I hit, oops, pull up the keyboard there. I'm going to hit the I key. I now have insert at the very bottom of my screen, and I'm going to insert the text before the word crypto, so I can type hello. If I hit escape, I now leave insert mode, and I've written that text on screen. It's not in the file. It's not saved in that file until I save it by writing, :W, but it's there on the screen, and I've edited it. Now, the difference here, if I want to append or hit the A key, insert adds text before my character. A appends it or adds it after my character. So by typing A, I will now add the text after where I had my cursor. So that's just a real quick, just slightly different behavior. What you'll learn about VI is there's 1,000 different ways to do the same thing. And again, if I hit escape, I've now entered back into normal mode. The final thing is change. Now, change happens if I want to take a single piece of text and remove it and replace it with something new. So if I were to do CW, which if we remember from before, W means the word until we hit the white space. If I do change word, CW, you saw it removed the crypto and pulled it out because we're changing that single word. And now I'm back in visual mode or in insert mode. I can edit whatever text I want there. Hit escape, and now I'm back into normal mode. Now, visual mode is what I would use to select a bunch of text here. So by typing V, I've entered visual mode. Now, this means that I can move my cursor along and select as much text as I want based on where my cursor is, a single character at a time. Very handy if I don't have anything that's along a predefined boundary, but I want to select a freeform set of text. From there, I would do my copy, paste, delete, which I'll talk about in a second. The other option is if I want to delete or remove a whole paragraph of text or several lines of text, I can hit Shift V, and you can see it changes from visual to visual line. This operates based on line boundaries. So I'm no longer adding a single character at a time. I can only move up and down to select the text that I want. So if I try to go back, it's not going to do anything. If I try to go forward, it's not going to do anything. I can only use up and down to select that text. Now, again, from there, I could cut or cut or copy that text, but I'm not going to do anything with it yet because I don't want to jump too far ahead. Any questions on mode so far? Okay. Let's see here. Let's do copy, cut, and paste. Well, let's do finding and replacing. The other big thing that comes with basic VI usage is finding text or replacing text. So if I want to search for a string in something within a file, I'm going to do, from normal mode, I'm going to do slash and then my string. That's going to highlight, because I did HL search, that's going to highlight each instance of that word inside of the file. By default, it won't do that, which makes it a little bit confusing because you don't see where each of those instances is. Once I have it highlighted, N will move from top to bottom to find those results. So maybe I want the fourth entry of that. So I'll hit N 2 times. Capital N will do the reverse search. So it'll move from bottom to top in those results. And again, this is where HL search is handy because I want to see, do I need to go up or down? The other thing about VI is that by default, everything is case sensitive. So if I want to search for that string without matching case sensitivity, I'm going to append /C to the end of that string, and that will make it case insensitive. The other thing that we want to do is finding and replacing text. So it's very similar. We do :S, what text we want to search for, what we want to replace it with, and that will replace the first found instance from where your character is. So if I'm halfway through the file, it will work from top to bottom, find that instance, and replace it. If we append /G, so text replacement /G, replace every instance. If I want to make that find and replace case insensitive, I append /I. And if I do /C, that's going to ask me every single time, do I want to change that? And you can build your own adventure by adding all of these. If I want to look for global, case insensitive, and require confirmation, it's just /GIC at the end of it. And that will search globally, case insensitive, and require change confirmation. So let's go back to our file here. Let's start by searching. And I'm going to look at something that's very common in here, the characters ENCC. So I'm going to do a /ENCC, and you can see it's highlighted every single instance there because of that HL search. Now, if I hit N, ENCC, enter, I'm going to skip to each instance of that from top to bottom. And now it's found at the very end, it's going to say we've hit the bottom. We're going to go back to the top and keep searching. If I do Shift N, we're going to move upwards in the file. And then once I hit the top, it's going to say we've hit the top, roll down to the bottom. Now, to show that case insensitivity, if I do /ENCC, by default, it's not going to find anything because I haven't matched the case. But if I do /I and hit enter, sorry, /I, what's going on here? Oh, see, there we go. There we go, backwards /C. Now I found that, I need to edit that, I put in the wrong direction. So now I found ENCC by adding that case insensitivity, and now I see that I'm matching all of those different those capital letters. And again, I can search by N and move forwards and backwards there. Now, say I want to replace each of those ENCC instances. Let's do /S ENCC, and we want to replace it with ENCC. That's going to replace that first instance that I was highlighted. We can see we've only changed that one instance, even though all the rest exist. If I want to make that change globally, :S ENCC ENCC, and I want to make it global. What's going on here? What's going on? This is blowing up on me in drastic and spectacular ways. That's why. There we go. Now we've replaced that. I was missing a slash there. So now we have replaced every ENCC. Yeah, I didn't have I had the extra slash there. So I had, there, right? Yeah. So now I replaced each of those capital ENCC instances with the lowercase ones. What? So colon S, ENCC, ENCC globally. That should be working. Oh my goodness. Okay. I will have to go back and fix and figure out why this is not working, because this worked when I worked on my own. It worked in my instance of Vim. My final thing before I wrap up, and I appreciate going through this very painful presentation, is that obviously I need to work on this a little bit more. Vim is weird, and we'll talk about copy, cut, and paste. Cut doesn't exist inside of VI. We delete text, and it stores it in a register, and then we can paste that back. So we would use D, lowercase d, to delete text. Copy is called yank. So we yank text out of the buffer or the file and move it into a register. And paste is normal. That's the lowercase p. So every time I have the parens around a character there, that's the command that we would use. Text that is deleted or yanked is placed in a register, and we can view those registers by :reg. By default, text is placed in the unnamed register, which is denoted by double quotes by default. And we can paste those registers back into our text. And without getting too deep into it, yanked text will always be stored in if we yank something, we'll see a duplicate between the double quotes and the 0 register. If we delete something, it will keep moving 1 through 9. The idea there is because we've deleted text, we want it to be stored. We want to be able to recall that as needed. If we're yanking, we're not removing it from the file. So yank will only be stored once. A delete will roll 1 through 9. And we can show that here real quick. So I'm going to delete some text, deleting some lines here. If we view that in the register, we can see that we've deleted those lines moving up. So crypto was the first, that policy was second, proposal, we deleted the white space, and that :J there denotes that there was a character return. So we've deleted those things moving back and forth. We can see that there's still this 0 register, which says no LSB modules are available. That's something that was copied outside of this file, obviously, and placed in that 0. If I want to yank text, and let's say I want to yank this line right here, we'll yank that text, and we can see that by, pull up the keyboard. I'll double Y that, so yank that whole line, and we'll look at the register. We can see that the yank text is going to show up in that unnamed register and the 0. So now if I want to paste that line somewhere in below, I'll just hit the P key, and we can see we've moved that text right where we've placed our character. So there's more, obviously, in this presentation. I didn't get to everything. I wanted to touch a little bit on the buffers, tabs, and windows, but you can leave that for the advanced or the intermediate tutorial within VI, so you can follow along there. There's also the 2 tutorials that were at the beginning of the presentation, and like I said, I'll pull up the QR code if you would like to get this presentation. I will be editing and fixing it so that it will work properly for those who try. And until then, we have a raffle for those as a reward for those who sat through this presentation, because it was painful. It was very painful. And ticket ending in 6109 will win a Fire TV. Does everybody have their raffle ticket? Ending in 6109. All right. The first guy that showed up actually got this. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you, everybody. That sucked. No, I'm not.